Hey guys, I wanted to share with you a little bit about how impact changes depending on the size of the implement or toy that you're using, the speeds, and the location of where you're hitting. So let's start with floggers. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, you've probably seen these already, but these are just a very wide flat end flogger, braided tail, singles end flogger, and this is my more impactful double braided back tails as well as stings of the ends. So why would you have multiple floggers? Because they all give different sensations. And then depending on the length of the tails as well, that you get different power levels. Number of tails makes a difference. So if you can purchase a flogger in person, one of the things you can do is actually try it out on yourself, whether taking a shorter grip because you're using a shorter distance, but you can try it out on your forearm, and try it out on your inner thigh, on the front of your thigh, or even on your own butt. That way it gives you an idea of what it feels like, how it handles a little bit. Give it a couple test swings just to make sure does it feel good in your hand, does it have a nice balanced weight. Sometimes I find if the handles are really light, it can be a lot harder to control, but lighter handles tend to be the cheaper floggers as well. Ours are all weighted and have actually crystallized cores in them, so they're also used for energy work as well as play. I really enjoy combining play and energy work, um, so that's why my floggers are designed for both. Now when you have the bigger tails, now the number of tails will also make a difference, especially in the flat-tailed ones. You can also have like hair floggers made of horsehair or other hair. That will be much more like, using a ponytail, a brushing sensation. And more tails, the wider the impact area, of course. And the longer the tails, the more power you can generate, because you can generate more speed. There's more distance for the tails to travel through, but it does make it a lot harder sometimes to land them all in a controlled fashion. So there's a trade-off between those. It does require a little bit more practice to use the longer tailed ones. Now that same impact rule of skinny, small is more of a stingy. Small is stingy, wide is impactful. The same goes for sticks and canes. The skinny ones are going to be a lot stingier versus the wider ones are going to be a lot more thuddy. Always be careful of the ends. If you don't want to use the ends to strike against the body, because that's how you create cuts, because it creates an impact area right beside a non-impact area, and it's much easier to break the skin that way. You always want to go about a third of the way up, so that part of the end is past the body, so that when you're impacting, you're just creating that thuddy or that stingy impact. Of course, if you're an advanced player and you know how to do it safely with aftercare as well, there is some enjoyment in cutting as well. But that is not recommended for beginners at all. That is a very long, multiple consensual conversations and really digging into what is being sought within that form of play. Now, one of the things you may have careful of. I had one person I talked to, the first whip that they used was a 10-foot bullwhip. And I shook my head at them. I knew them personally. I was like, no, no, no. You want to start with a crop, something short, something that you can control. Because when you have, 10 plus feet of whip, it's going all over the place. You don't know where it's landing. It's just, it's dangerous to start out with something like that. So please, 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 I want you guys to have a long line of pleasure received from exploration of playing in various ways. Um, Start off short, and if you only have a bullwhip, curl it around, make it shorter so you have the most of it in your hand curled, and then you can have a 2-foot whip out of that. Makes it a little bit more awkward because you have a lot in your hand, but you can even use the other hand to help control that. Just to practice that control, practice that aiming, because when you know how to aim, you are knowing where you're going to provide that. And it can be a lot of fun where you're like, okay, I'm going to hit them here, I'm going to hit them here, I'm going to hit them here. Oh, they're expecting there, but I'm going to move up over here just to like not make it a pattern so they can't guess where it's going to hit next. Now, something like this is, I would consider intermediate to advanced if you're using the full length. I actually quite often just grip it here. It's a foot or less, and then that is what I will use for the impact play, because it's much more controlled, and if I do want more, I just increase the speed. Okay, and that way you're controlling where it's going much more, especially if you are playing with more delicate areas like the chest or the groin area, where it can be a little bit more tricky where you're aiming, where you're hitting. So shortening those up just to get more control can be really, really helpful. So yeah, wide and flat, thuddy. Now that's not always the rule, because certain materials like wood or rubber or vinyl, like certain things can still be stingy even if they're wide and flat. But in general, wide and flat, thuddy. Same with the hands, solid hands is thuddy. If you just use a single finger or spread your hand out, you get more stingy. You get, of course, a little bit of stinginess just from the impact between skin and skin. But single tails, small, very skinny. A friend of mine had these small carbon fiber canes. They're just very short, but they're very, very stingy. Pieces of flex, like the PEX plumbing pipe, can also be used for canes. They're a little easier to clean. I've used bamboo skewers. You can get the hot dog ones or the s'mores ones, which are longer and a little thicker. Just be aware, if you are using natural fibers, to always check for splinters or fraying or even cracking. You always want to make sure that your implements are still solid, because they will wear as you use them, and there's no fun picking out splinters out of an area, taking away from whatever you're doing. So I hope that gives you a little bit more in-depth knowledge around what implements you want to choose for the type of sensations you want to provide. See you soon. Bye for now.